Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our event, Black Business Growth Initiative. We are coming to you live and we want to welcome all of you. Today, I have with me Mrs. Lamby Xaba, who is an entrepreneur. I also have Mr. Fezekile Mahlati, who is also an entrepreneur. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail introducing them, but they will introduce themselves. My name is Sazi Asanda Ndwandwa. I am facilitating this session today and I will be your host. So welcome to everyone. Thank you also for joining us. What I'd like us to do right now is to take just a minute to share with our friends, with our colleagues, with everyone who might be interested in what we're going to talk about today. And what will we be talking about today? We'll be talking about legacy. If you live in South Africa, you will know that the 24th of September every year is a public holiday in remembrance of Heritage Day. Now, the idea that we would take out and the government would say an entire day of productivity should be stopped in order to observe this day means that this is a very important day. We are here to discuss issues that relate to legacy, to inheritance, and to what we leave behind for future generations and what we have found that has been left to us by previous generations. So let's take a moment, 30 seconds. I'm going to mute myself, share, invite your friends, your families. They're going to gain a lot from this. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, let's get started. As I've said before, my name is Sazi Ndwandwa and you have joined us for Bbgi Connect as we talk about legacy, the story that you leave for those who come behind you. I've got two guests today, Mrs. Lamby Xaba and Mr. Fezekile Mahlati. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. And then after we do so, I'm just going to talk to those of you who are joining us for the first time to explain what the Black Business Growth Initiative is about. And for those of you who've joined us before, I shall repeat the message. It's always worth hearing a second and a third time. So for now, Mrs. Xaba, over to you, just a brief introduction of who you are, where you are right now as you speak to us, and what is your background as far as business and your professional occupation is concerned. Over to you.
Thank you, Sazi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lamby Xaba Niinyati Umambele. I'm a mother and a wife to the late Dr. Xaba, the most handsome man. I worked at UNITRA Medical School as a senior medical technologist. I graduated in mathematics and chemistry. I later joined the chemistry department as a technical lecturer. In 1999, I joined my husband in his surgery. We started the surgery in 1999. And I've been in business with him till his last day. May his soul rest in peace. My beautiful kids encouraged me to follow my dream, as I have been chasing their dreams and their daddy's dream. At the age of 58, I started to research on how to run a nursery excellently. This work resulted into the birth of Lily's Lamb, which is a landscaping and garden services. Lily's Lamb, Lily is my mother, and Lamb stands for me. So it's a combination of me and my mother. So I really need to do something for her. I just want to say you are never too old. For as long as you breathe, there is something that you can do. I spend my spare time on Women with Vision, an NPO, which is a non-profit making organization, looking after less privileged kids between the ages of 0 and 18. The most exciting role in my life now is that of being a grandmother. I'm a grandmother to 6 precious kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
my
you so much,
introduction.
Mrs. Xaba.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for sharing that wonderful story of what your business means. Lily's Lamb, Lily's Lamb in commemoration also to your mother. Thank you so much. Brafez, over to you. Unmute.
The name is Fezekile Mahlati. Did you hear me? Okay. The name is Fezekile Mahlati. I've got the first one, which I don't normally use because it's just business only, which is Lonwabo Fezekile Mahlati. I'm the last born of the 4 siblings. And I was born Guapata, called Mount Frey. And I went to various high schools. At least minimum 4. All I can say is that I never lost a year, so I didn't fail. So, and my schooling was all in Natal. From Manzimtoti, Ohlange, Edendale, and others. Then I went to many other universities. So, starting from Fort Hare, maybe ending up at Lesotho and then UCT. I lectured a bit, I served articles, I'm a failed accountant. So, and I think what's interesting here is that my really legacy and what I want to keep is I come from an educational family. Both my parents were teachers. And my great-grandfather started Osborne Mission. And then Utatumwam started Nyanga. And those in the old, generations, would know that everywhere when I meet my old people, they always ask Mahlati, which one? Is it the one from Osborne or the one from Engel? So for me, and so that has meant a lot for me. I always tell people that the first time I met white people is they came to play tennis at my grandfather's place. So it's that's basically what we're trying to live for and leave behind. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I find very difficult when I meet young people saying that, no, I'm focused on IT, I'm focused on that. Because it took 100 years for Anglo-American to decide where to focus. And they were selling milk, doing everything and turning around and selling to the miners and everything else. And it took them 100 years to say, okay, we'll focus in mining. So I think as young entrepreneurs, you must focus on making money instead of focusing on any horse that you don't know which one will win. So, but a brief history, basically, I lectured a bit, then started Tebe Investments, which is, and then that gave me the exposure in the whole of Africa when the African National Congress was moving from a liberation movement to a political party. So we closed all the offices. And whilst doing that, then I saw some opportunity in Luanda where I sold beer, and it was the time of export incentives in South Africa. And then ended up selling onion in Cote d'Ivoire. So, and then came back. Before that, I had worked, we started property syndications with SIF, where we started syndicating, because property, you can buy it, as a syndicate, which was what I saw when I was serving articles. So our first project was Maynard Mall, which we bought for 850 and syndicated it for 1.4 million. But after 3 years, we had syndicated close to 970 million properties. Then I moved on to sell containers, because all people wanted dollars then, so we could list containers in dollars and then get that. So from there, but right now I'm in oil and gas. I've been in oil and gas all my life, but now the new venture is really in digital currency, and which is using precious metals, particularly gold, as an underlying asset for which we can melt it into blockchain and sell it, because everybody has always known that gold is a storer of value. Now we want to use it as a currency so that you can transact. Why should you have a rand account? You can have a gold account, you can have a platinum account. And so there's currency wars. So I've decided to put myself into that, and hopefully we will all succeed and we can curb the inflation in Africa. I think I've spoken a lot for now. So that's enough for my introduction, I think.
Whew. What an introduction. Thank you, Brafez. And I think you've just demonstrated exactly what we are talking about in terms of the things that we want to share with the younger generations. Now, before we get into the discussion, as I said, I'm just going to share a little bit about what the Black Business Growth Initiative is about. Now, we are a community of like-minded people that seeks to see its Black members grow in every aspect of their lives. So what we're really saying is that we uphold and we stand for the following objectives and values. Number one, we're saying that if as Black people we can unite and we can collaborate and we can approach things from a position that says there is more than enough. Competition is not always necessarily the first point of call. And number two, if we can also in everything that we do in supporting each other and growing together and collaborating, we can do everything that we do with a spirit of excellence. Not necessarily say we want to be perfect every time, but a spirit of saying if we make a mistake, we own up to it, we do better next time, and we are always progressing in the direction of getting better and more professional and more, more united, if I can say that. We also talk about continuous balanced growth, which is saying that your growth must be continuous, i.e. we don't want us to plateau, but rather we always want to be progressing in a direction that we have chosen for ourselves, but in a balanced way, so that when you succeed in one area, you're not sacrificing another area. When you succeed in your work, you're not sleeping 2 hours a day, sacrificing your health, sacrificing your family, sacrificing your social and filial relations. And we also stand for good intention. That means that we approach each other from a position of integrity. We approach each other from a position of brotherhood and sisterhood. We approach each other from a position that says that, things are much better when they are shared rather than trying to hoard and keep everything for ourselves. We're able to be happy for one another when we experience success, progress, and achievement. And last but not least, we're saying that we want to foster a community that takes personal responsibility. There are many things, if you are a South African or an African in general, that you can point back and say, the colonialists, the apartheid, this, that, so-and-so did this, the position I'm in, it is because of that person. We're saying, as true as that might be, us pointing that finger does not really help us to get out of the situation that we're in. We need to take personal responsibility as individuals, as role players within our families, and also as community members, either within your geographical location or even within this community of the Black Business Growth Initiative. So that's it in a nutshell. So when we are talking today about heritage, what we are really saying is that we want to look at the legacy that we have inherited and the legacy that we want to leave for those who come behind us. What is our place in history? 1994 came and went. It's been over 2 decades now. This generation that is now taking up the reins, what is the responsibility in the history of the country, in the history of the Black people, in the history of the Black nation as a whole? That really is the crux of what we're talking about. So that is why you'll see us today. We have, these experienced people who Mr. Mahlati or Mrs. Xaba, to come and share their perspectives and to come and share with us in terms of their story and the legacy that they see. So the intention of this event is to share their experiences, is for them to encourage and motivate wherever they can. I think Mr. Mahlati has already started that when he said, you know what, here's a paradigm shift. Why do you need to put pressure on yourself to choose one lane when even Anglo-American took 100 years to choose one lane? Why can you not use the principle of hedging and say, well, I can try that, I can try that, I can try that. I don't have to box myself in so that now I'm sweating. If this doesn't work, that's the end of me. Because everything is cyclical, everything, as he has mentioned already. Now it will be onions, now it will be beer, now it will be energy, oil, and all those things. So that already is part of the message that we're looking to educate and bring awareness as well. So what we are looking for and what we also encourage is that we can have different perspectives, because someone out there might agree with Mr. Mahlati, someone out there might agree with Mrs. Xaba, even if between the two of them, they don't agree. So there's nothing wrong with that. We just want to open up our minds and open up the debate and share multiple perspectives. We want to offer practical advice, practical suggestions, not just to talk about things, but to say practically for things to move. We have to go beyond talking and get to the point where we start acting. And then, of course, that also talks to the encouraging of personal action. So, to my dear panelists, let's kick off the conversation. Tell me, first I'll go with Mrs. Xaba. Legacy. Our topic today says legacy, the story you leave for people behind you. What does this topic and this theme mean for you personally?
Thank you, Sazi. Legacy is a trail that is left by someone who has been somewhere before. Let's say it's someone who's been here on earth and the person leaves to go in heaven, if I may just put it that way, symbolically speaking. A legacy can serve well as a guide for those following. That is, it acts as a point of reference. If I can make an example, Tata Oliver Tambo, Tata Sisulu, Tata Mandela, and Tata Steve Biko left a legacy, very rich legacy for us to follow. If I may talk about Baba Steve, his legacy that he left for us, for me, is that I must be proud that I'm a Black woman. And being proud of being a Black woman, I must impart that to my daughters. I must not be ashamed of being a Black woman. I must appear as a Black woman, not, I don't want to offend anyone, but as a Black woman, I must stand as a Black woman. I have my hair, I have my earrings, but basically I am a Black woman that I must impart to my children. I must just mention something that really worries me. Apologies to those that I will offend. I don't mean to offend them. You know what? When I was a little girl growing up, I looked upon a white woman and I thought white women are the right people to be here. We even took Yabanumbona, we used to take Olanwebu and put it on our hair and shake our head, thinking that we look like white people. My first doll was a white doll, and I thought that was the best thing. But later on in life, I realized that, you know what, black girl, you've got your beautiful hair. Comb your hair, look after your hair. My hair, to me, is also a legacy, something that I have to protect. Nowadays, I get disturbed when I find people, when I look at somebody at the back, I see a white woman. But when I look at the shape, I said, no, that is a black woman. I don't blame those people. Don't get me wrong. I don't blame those people. This is what was instilled in them, that a woman is beautiful if you have straight, long hair, which is going to take years for us to change. But it's time that we start teaching our daughters that, you know what, you are beautiful with your African hair. Men are lucky. I don't know why men are selling us. Men don't tell us that, hey, Wena, stop this. Because you look everywhere. African men are the same. They've got that haircut and they've got the same haircut. In other words, they don't go for what we do. We as women, we spend a lot of money buying what the white man is saying is acceptable. At first, they used to give us creams, 7 days, Ambi. Some people will recognize those words. Those things contain hydroquinone, which will give you things called amachubaba. You turn black. I was fortunate at my high school when I was ready to go to matric. I wanted that skin lightener, and my mother said, no, you are going to continue using Nivea cream. You see, in my mind, I was already trying to become what? A white woman. That goes deep into your mind and it sits in your soul. So we need to teach our girls that it is okay to have your black hair. Your hair is beautiful. That is us. And if you go to business, we have Abosaki Matozoma, Patrice Matsipe, you name them. These people are regarded as trailblazers who are leaving a legacy already. Let us learn from those people. And can they please also, the people who are in a position to teach others, teach them so that as Black people, we embrace each other and we go together forming this legacy. Congratulations, Bbgi, on this important initiative to host this discussion today that also covers this topic of legacy. It is very important because it inspires us on the subject of leaving a legacy. By these initiatives, you also a legacy. You are walking the talk. We wish you all the best. May you grow from strength to strength. To the young people, please, it's time to sit down, to go back to the drawing board. Go back to the drawing board and try and get in touch with our roots, find out how we lived. Because I believe that education was there, even if it was not a formal education. We can be stronger. We can do it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mrs. Xaba. What a way to open in terms of talking about legacy. And what I've heard you saying is that it actually goes back to, you know, encouraging a sense of healthy identity in the way that you value yourself as a Black person. It also talks to those who are already reached a certain pinnacle of what we'd consider to be a success, to also take on that mantle of passing on what they know for the younger generations. And I think, you know, what you've just said now reminds me of a story that I heard. A gentleman, this was in America though, he says I'm in a store and I'm watching a little white girl with her mother. She's going to choose a doll, and she chooses a black doll. And the mother says, "Why do you choose that doll?" And the little girl, about 5 or 6, says, "Oh, it's a nice doll." And the mother says, "But that doll doesn't look like you. That doll is not nice. Take this one. This one looks like you." And, you know, I think there's a strong message in that. You know, I think it links very well with what you are saying. Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing that. Legacy means embracing your identity, valuing yourself on the outside as well as the inside, because the two are probably interlinked. Brafez, from your side, anything you want to add or a different perspective? Or rather just the answer to say, well, this topic of legacy and, you know, your story that you are every day with every decision and every action that you are writing for those who come behind you. Unmute.
I think you're running out of time. So what I would do, I mean, for me, I think the legacy really I would like to leave behind and is to challenge the young guys like yourselves to actually challenge the paradigms of financing in South Africa. I mean, the way that, you know, right now, the banks have centralized the decision making. And I think what is happening is that the blacks are going to take longer to circulate the money amongst themselves, all right? And there will always be repatriation of capital in South Africa unless we actually, the young generation challenges that and the paradigm of risk assessment. If you can see now, today, all the computerization of the risk assessment has taken away the human judgment. As such, you've got all the bank managers now being post office, you know, the computer actually rates your scoring. So, and what has happened is that all the land and the money you're putting in the rural area is not recognized as balance sheet, and it is not part of the economic growth. You understand? So for whatever you have in abundance, you cannot put it in your balance sheet as your capital. So you must always be buying property elsewhere, and you are seen as being worthless because all the assets resides in a place that is not recognized. Now, if you look at all the investments that is sitting around the rural, which you can use basically as your collateral to get the money to get to business, is not recognized by the system. And I believe that the young financial managers should actually be challenging the paradigm of financing, because Africa has got land in abundance. And if you don't recognize, and you must have we must be the owner of land, we are going to have a long way for the younger generation to amass the capital in order to achieve their dreams. And that can be done, and it can be achieved because you've got lots of young guys now being asset managers who can actually change the paradigm. Because right now you've got all these so-called developed nations borrowing money at 0 rate, whereas we are paying so much. I mean, simply because they don't recognize part of our land as capital. So if you can turn that thing around, so the money that you take from Cape Town to build a home in the Transkei is like smoked money. It's not an investment because you can't get bond. You know, so those are the things that I think the youth, particularly the people, now take back the decision making to human decision making and use the established financial instruments and tilt the balance towards the indigenous people.
Wow. Yeah. Professor, thank you for sharing that. And you know what you are talking about, I've come across a few people who they apply for a loan part of the balance sheet that you can use for collateral. What a wonderful point. And I think the challenge that you've said before is to say, young people, challenge this thing. We have the power to challenge it. If the youth of 1976 could challenge Afrikaans, anything is challengeable, because those situations were even more stringent than we are facing today in terms of the freedoms to speak. And I think, Professor, I'll lead on to our next question. In your view, what has happened in South Africa since 1994 from a social and economic perspective? I think you've touched a little bit on it, but in terms of transitioning, this transformation, this economic emancipation, what do you think has happened versus what we were expecting to happen, or the dream that was promised?
To me, I believe we've achieved a lot from 1990 to where we are. If you can ask anybody of my generation that in January 1990, before the announcement, where would they think they would be in 2020? They would be lying to tell you that they thought they would be where they are. The only thing is that, have we achieved more, or could we have achieved more? Yes. If I drive through Transkei, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo now and see the lights in the rural area where it was dark, I realize how far we've actually gone. The only problem is all in the mentality. Now, and the fallacy, which I always call the middle class or the intelligentsia fallacy, is that the struggle in South Africa has always been led by the so-called intelligentsia. That is, people who were educated, all right? And please don't say that people who are uneducated are unintelligent. But those people never thought that the people who are uneducated also want the same position. And the problem with that is that we are right in the middle of the class struggle. And unfortunately, the past 10 years, we've made people believe that even if you don't go to school, and even if you did not do anything, like, if you code VPS, you can also be a millionaire. So, but we should have anticipated that. And the unfortunate thing is the demise of the intelligentsia within the politics, and the demise that people see the government as a section that does not belong to them. I belong to the generation that the movement and the government is me. And when I see the non-participation, particularly of the so-called intellectual youth in the decision-making, is driving our country to decay.
Thank you, Professor. And that's quite a sobering thought to say, guys, we have achieved a lot, but we've got a mindset issue. And also these young professionals, these so-called, maybe it's the clever blacks, or whatever they're called, the political participation needs to improve, because that's where a lot of the decisions are made, and they stay out of that. So, and I guess, Mrs. Xaba, linking to that question, if you look at how, when it comes to succession planning, Professor is talking about saying, from my perspective, when I look back 1990, when I look back at government and, political parties, I have a sense of ownership over that. But the younger generation, they don't seem to have that. Now, when it comes to succession planning, we as Black South Africans, how are we doing when it comes to passing on the knowledge, the values, the principles, and I guess the ideals of what will carry us forward in creating a better legacy and an ever-improving legacy?
Oh, thank you, Sazi. My views on how well we are passing on knowledge, experience, and values as a country. We are challenged here big time. We are increasingly failing as we take forward a few steps as a country, we seem to slip back further. I must say that pessimism has no place in a developmental state like South Africa. We have to keep on going. We have to keep on working forward as to achieve these goals that we have set. Our indigenous knowledge systems have room and space to play in this project of completing our transformation and improving ordinary people's lives. Modern methodologies have consumed the rest of the space. There are platforms today, such as social media, who offer you more far-reaching, faster, universal, multicultural, all the time, all around opportunity to influence the direction of thinking. We have to be careful as to use these effectively. Our mindset needs to change so that we can be able to sit down at a boardroom level kind of situation where we can impart the knowledge. I'm thinking of a woman who's selling fruit or ulusu elusikisiki. We are supposed to be able to reach such a person with the knowledge. We must be transparent. We must be able to impart all the values. The programs that we develop must be able to speak to us here in the Transkei and other so-called, what do you call it, less fortunate or poor provinces. We need our young professionals to stand up, come back to us, come back to the boardroom, sit down with us, especially here in the Transkei. We've got areas that really are in the dark. Those people need some light. How are we going to shed light to them? That is your business, Sazi. Your Bbgi must come here and be able to go to Lusikisiki. We must not only end up here on Facebook or on emails and such things, but we must be able to reach those people far back in Lusikisiki and be able to help them in their problems. I've got a lady from Lusikisiki who keeps on calling me. The poor lady started a business before COVID, but unfortunately the business is not going well. She ran out of money. She bought herself a deep freeze, and then she has been selling Ulusu tribe. You know, that lady is working very, very hard, and she is not the only one. We really need to get to those people so that we impart some knowledge to them. We not only talk, we show them that we care, and we also help them out of that poverty. No more fancy boardrooms. Let us come to the rural areas and talk from that level. Thank you.
No, I hear you. And you know, what I'm hearing is the reach to say, as much as this, you know, we might be the middle class, we are the ones who are sitting in the boardrooms, educated professionals, but in a way we are pioneers. And therefore, whatever journey we are on, it's not just for ourselves. We need to go back and also plant so that everyone can share in this. And I guess, you know, again, you are talking to the personal responsibility of saying, as young professionals, you know, you need to take up the space, which is a point that links to what Professor say. But Professor, I think also some people can't do things alone. You know, what more could we as individuals and this community to speed up the rate of economic transformation? You've mentioned the financing and the ownership of the decision making as far as financing and capitalizing of businesses to help them grow. Is there anything else that you, and Mrs. Xaba has said, well, you know, you've got these skills, but you are there in Cape Town, you're in Joburg, you're in the suburbs. how do you come back and include other people? Because you've also mentioned there's the land. You know, we can use that land to be productive. We can use that land also as collateral once we fix those things. What else can we do more of, and what do we think we should be doing less of?
The most interesting thing is that, you know, economics actually starts from your experience, where you come from, and what you can get from where you are getting. Now, what's happening is, for instance, 50% of grain up till 1950 came from the Eastern Cape. And South Africa, you know, the whole GDP of South Africa is less than Washington. You know, we know that, I mean, the organically grown, you know, things are actually in high demand. You know, South Africa was always born as, you know, it worked via co-ops. There used to be banana board, maize board, and everything. There used to be silos. When you actually harvest, you put it on a silo, you get a check in December. Now, for me, once you start having an attitude that is the government and isolate yourself from the government, then you've started losing the plot. You are the government. You must tell the person when he wants you to buy him ice cream to actually pay your money that, oh, by the way, I'm paying the taxes for you to get the salary. And if you take the responsibility of the government, then you will stop blaming the ANC or the government. You will start knowing that I'm failing myself. You understand? And once we all take collective responsibility of what is happening, that's when I think we can move things forward. That's basically my take. So if you, I mean, for instance, when you grew up, I mean, there are many examples. You can give people day-year-old chicks. You can buy them after 3 weeks. You can have mobile abattoirs. You can export the same chicken. And, you know, right now in Europe, I mean, organic chicken, it goes around 16 to 18 euro per kilo. So if you can manage to get a container, which is about 15 tons, and you can even air freight it. So it's all those things. And if you you can give each one to actually do that. The only thing is that we've got all the extension officers within the governments, within the provinces. And what you are saying is that you must challenge and say, what does the province do? I mean, you've got local government, you've got province. You know, provinces were amalgamated to pass laws and to generate. But right now, tell me how many laws has Eastern Cape province passed since 1990? So if you don't challenge those and you are outside, you know, pissing inside, sorry to use the word, then you won't be heard. But if the youth, particularly the educated youth, write and do the policies, let me tell you, the history was that most of the intelligentsia, you know, during Mandela's time and everything, was sitting as unity movement outside the ANC. And they used to write the papers to be adopted within the conference. And for me, I believe that Mandelas themselves, they were young bulls. I've never seen an old bull handing over to a young bull. You understand? You must find a place in society. Otherwise, a bull doesn't say, oh, you can take over now, I'm going to. So when you talk about the succession plan, the youth must play path for their succession and the country they want to see. And now there's no detention. You can say anything as you wish. So the youth must map up the way going forward. And then the old bull will decide to die.
The old bull will decide to die.
Yes, or it will hunt lying down.
Oh, you know, in everything we've been saying, I think there are two consistent themes that are coming up. One is around the mindset that we have, and that is the mindset of expecting someone to reach out to you and also therefore the need to be proactive and not blame government, but to take responsibility and say, well, if there's going to be succession, it means I must take up that succession. I must show my readiness in a practical way to take over. You know, what is going to be the future and how, and since I'm going to be here to live through that future and my children as well. So really those two themes, number one, our mental attitude, and number two, our participation proactively to challenge the status quo and to take the space rather than waiting for someone to give it to us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Uzola is one of our team members. He's the one who's taking questions and comments from the audience on Facebook Live. Zola, over to you. Just enable your camera and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Bbgi. Quick one, and umbuzo okhoyo wokuqala apha uthi ndiyavakala Bbgi?
Yes, carry on, siyakuva.
Okay, thank you. Umbuzo wokuqala uthi apha, I think is directed to both the panelists, uthi ndicela ubuza apha uba into endiqapheleyo on all the other communities that form part of the fabric yalapha South Africa that are not African by birth or by ethnicity. Failure has been used as a path to success. So they've managed to use that, but once you fail, don't feel bad, carry on, you've learned a lesson there. Within our own community as Abantu Abamnyama, we seem to have associated failure with, failure with having failed dismally. So should you take up a business venture and it doesn't go well, the entire community Abantu Babuthi bayahlekisa ngawo uba you have failed, not acknowledging that you are version 1. Uzofumanisa ukuqala kuwe kuyakho ifamily niqala uyenza lento, but uye wahamba wabethakala. Siyitshintsha njani ke leyo ingqondo such that there's a legacy that xa uhamba apha in your business journey, should ubethakale, suphela amandla, carry on and make sure you carry all those lessons learned from there. So umbuzo utsho apha, but how do we then de-associate ukungaphumeleli kwethu in some business ventures with the overall failure of the community? That's one. Owesibini uthi izicomment ezilandelayo uthi isuka ku Zamikhaya uthi always great listening to Brafez telling it as it is. Only now the ANC is starting to wake up and checking qualifications and taking people through interview processes before appointing them into leadership roles, e.g. mayors, municipal managers. Cadre deployment should have been done through this process instead of appointing and who shouts the loudest. Enye ilandelayo ithi great point. What we see now is the middle, so we are in the middle of a class struggle. Okwangoku isezezo. Ndiyabulela kakhulu.
Thank you so much, Zola. Yeah, the first question about how to deal with initial failures and setbacks and, you know, umntu angatyhafi, what differentiates us in terms of how we deal with it versus what one might consider foreign nationals. Mrs. Xaba, may I bring this one towards you?
Thank you, Sazi. You know what? Failure is something that is there. Again, I'm going to talk about the mindset and also how we embrace or not embrace each other. When somebody fails, don't take it as if it's the last time. Take it as if I've gained some experience. How can I try again and doing it differently? It's unfortunate that we as Black people don't support each other. Failure is not a nice thing. A person who has failed needs to be encouraged. You know what? You are not a failure. Support. And I also think, Saz, it will help in your business structure that you have something that is going to talk to people like Lamby Xaba Mr. How do you help people who have failed in business? And also, abantu bakuthi banida ukufundiswa bethunwana, they need to be taught that we must support each other. Sibukane like other races. Why is it that we don't support each other? Uhleka ntoni xa umuntu efeyilishile? Because remember, if that person goes up the ladder, it gives you a chance also to go up, because it's going to bring some light in a particular village and everybody is going to benefit. So it goes back to that. We as Black people, we do not support each other. We do not embrace each other. May I just add something, Sazi? I've got these friends, I'm not going to mention who they are. They've got so many hardware shops here in Mthatha. We are there, we are watching. I don't know, but there must be about 100 plus. Why is it that we cannot learn from those people? Ask them and tell us, how are you doing this? Why are you successful? How do you get success? You guys are very successful. And then we take those notes, apply them to us, because we are the ones who buy the building material. We go to the shops, Abo Spa, to buy food. Why is it that there is not a single spa that is owned, for example, by women here in the Transkei? Why is it that like that? Trucks come here in the Eastern Cape to bring our food. It's a shame, I heard that our food comes from other provinces. We've got land, eleleyo, land that was last used when the Matanzimas were still alive. So we really need to embrace, sit down, go to the drawing board and say, no, Black people, we are Black. This is my brother. Not just by mouth, by action. You must show that that person is your brother. These people come here. One was wearing flops. Now that lady, hey, she's changing cars. And I'm here and I did not building material. And then I told them, building shop, sorry. I told them, you know what? I'm going to have a hardware shop too, because you guys seem to be opening hardware shops. Tell me the trick. And she says, okay, I'm gonna tell you. So iti lendo, Tina asisapotani, should each other, for goodness sake. When someone is doing something, we must clap for that person, support him, push him up, and not pull him down. That is the only way that
I think the point you are raising as well, in my mind, and maybe I might ask you, Professor, is, you know, this dream of education, right? To say we are educated, therefore we have these certificates and what. Do we have a proper understanding of education? Do we use this education, or how can we better use the education that we have to solve the problems of our country? Because I think what we have been saying here is about taking personal responsibility, is about shifting our mindset. But I think maybe, you know, from what you are saying, it's also might be a matter of empowering ourselves with knowledge that we can use practically. Any thoughts on that, Professor?
Look, for me, education is just, a man-made certificate from Europeans to prove that you can be a slave. But at the end of the day, it allows you the doors that you can start. But, you know, it's not so you must use whatever you learn, all right? And education, particularly South African education, is not really practical. Because, the money we spend on education to the end product I don't think is applicable. But it's fine. Whatever you want. What I want to address and say that the person, when you talk about failure, you don't eat opinions and perceptions. You know, if you dwell on what people think, all right, which means you are weak. You know, you must know what you want in life and then continue striving for what you want to get. And what is important here is that I believe that Black South Africans, apartheid or no apartheid, by pure numbers, they would be the poorest. I mean, everywhere. If we can go to New York here, as few of us will be rich because we share information, we share everything else. Anywhere in the world, the majority is the poorest. Because you must just understand that. But you must also understand, so, and you must not actually be scared of saying so. That's why kukhona distinction, kukhona first class, kukhona ntoni. I mean, education by itself is discriminatory. So if you actually try and put an A student with an F student, you are failing both students. What we try to do as South Africans is to do everything for everybody else. But if you can group yourself to a certain group of a certain class, you will achieve more faster and you can help than the majority. But to think that you can do anything as individual to support the majority, I mean, they will drag you down, you will drown with them. So for me, the educated and the like-minded are those people who should be the pioneers of transformation. And they should not feel bad about actually their achievements. As long, for me, it's always been capitalism, socialism, communism is how you spend your profit. So if you take it back to the community or you put it in your pocket or you drink it or whatever it is. But what's important is to make the profit.
Yo, Professor, yeah. I think you have, in a way, just summarized the Black Business Growth Initiative in a nutshell. That says, as like-minded people, let us demonstrate that this thing is doable. Let us do it ourselves. And then thereafter, we can focus on spreading it to other people. But we have almost run out of time. Mrs. Xaba, just 30 seconds, closing remark. What is your message to the professionals who are out there, to the business owners who are starting and chasing their dreams? Just 30 seconds, your key message to them.
I just want to say, as Black people, they are beautiful. They must be proud of themselves. They must not allow any race to look down upon them. You must never forget who you are. Let them play the game of excellence. Learn the tricks from the whites and whoever you can learn from, and use those tricks to beat them at their game. We were born to win. Let's embrace each other and learn how business is done or conducted. Lastly, live and don't die before your death. Socialize to keep your brain functioning. Thank you very much. And
thank you so much, Mrs. Xaba. We really appreciate that message.
Thank you.
Rafez, closing message.
Oh, okay. For me, I would like to congratulate you on your initiative. And I hope that it's going to bear fruit and many people will actually benefit from the interactions. And when it comes to, I mean, to passing of knowledge and everything else, all right? I mean, for me, somebody must have a clear objective of what he wants. And then maybe I can tell him or not what to do. You see, people come and tell you that, okay, can I give you my CV? You know, so somebody is expecting me to look for a job for him or for her. You understand? Whereas if somebody says, I'm looking for this job or this opportunity, then you are able to share the information or the knowledge of whatever it is. What I find is that within the youth here, there is no clear objective that what they want to achieve except wealth. And unfortunately, they were all in competition because we all want wealth. There's no one who doesn't want wealth. But I mean, there's no need. The wealth can be shared. Everything can be shared. And we are all interdependent. And the dependency on each other, if we turn it into wealth, will make us grow all together. And I wish you luck with your organization and hope that you'll get more participants and everything else, and hope you success in the future, all of you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you so much to our panelists. We have heard from experience, wisdom, which comes from practical experiential knowledge. It's not a classroom exercise, but these are people who have done what they're talking about. And therefore, we are very grateful for your time, Mrs. Xaba, Mr. Mahlati. Thank you so much for your time. Now, in closing, number one, we would like some volunteers as the BBGI. You will see we've got a number of videos. So we're looking for people who can help us with editing this video so that instead of listening for an hour-long interview, you can actually break it up into manageable chunks that we can share so that this information, everyone can find the time to assimilate it. And also we are looking forward to hosting you again for our October event. It's going to be on the 19th of October. There we will be bringing some funders to come and talk to us so that if you are running a business and you want to get funding, we want to give you exposure on what you should generally have in place, what questions you should expect, at what point in your business's journey you should be able to access that funding, and all these other things. So we look forward to hosting you 19 October. It's a Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening. Goodbye. And again, thank you to our panelists. Salangakle.